Hey, this is Willie. Just going to do a quick video, some tips and hacks on changing a timing belt on a 2.8 liter Duramax. There are videos that have some more information on how to do this. I'll make sure I put them in the description below this video. I just wanted to cover a few facts or tips on why a belt, how to adjust it, why you need a timing tool, different things like that. So how I started this is I took everything apart and I found that a pair of pliers works really good to get these clips apart for the intercooler. You put them, push the intercooler charge tube on, then you can pull these clips up and then you can take that off. I am going to replace the gaskets for the intercooler as well as tighten up all the clamps for the charge pipes on both sides. Make sure that's all good. And then I put timing marks. There's 2 marks here, 2 marks down here, and then 2 marks over there. Let me turn the light on so you can see. So you can see the 2 marks I put on over here. But then here's the factory timing mark. So you take the center line of the bolt to this mark and it lines up with the block right there. And on the high pressure fuel pump, a little hard to see, there's a little dimple right there on that valley, and that lines up with the center of this bolt with that dimple with this mark on the block or the timing cover right here. And what I wound up doing to make things a little easier is I put a zip tie on here to hold this belt in place on these marks. Then you can wrap it around your water pump pulley, put it onto your high pressure fuel pump pulley, and then you can get it onto your crankshaft pulley. Now the tensioner had like a little pin in it, but I could not get that belt to rest on the pulley with that pin in that slot. Didn't have the clearance. So I'll go in a little more detail on this a little bit, but you can, I'm going to go into details of this tools right here. You can mark this and put it together without the tool. However, if you ever do any head gasket work, the relationship between this center line of the camshaft and the center line of the crankshaft changes, in which case you have to readjust this pulley. This pulley does not have any keys on it, and it would have to be clocked clockwise or counterclockwise depending on how much you mill off this head, or even if you change a head gasket, you got to reset your center line here, because if you don't have this at TDC, when the crankshaft is at TDC and you had this head off at any point, this could be off a half a tooth or a tooth, and that can cause problems, when, especially on a diesel when it's a high compression engine. So I was just mention the fact that if you ever do a head gasket or any head work, make sure you have this tool, or you mark it really good before you take anything apart. You can mark it back here. Make sure nothing moves and everything stays at TDC before you take the belt off. And I copied the timing marks off the old belt and put them onto the new belt. So nothing hugely complicated. It's not rocket science. Just, yeah, be careful because you don't want to mess anything up and crash a valve or something. Now when I go to put this pulley on, there's a slot right here. I don't know if you can see that slot. That goes on this tab right here. You can see the bolt hole right here. That all lines up. So you have the bolt hole, slot, bolt hole, and slot. So I'm going to have to put those little tabs behind the belt and then hold the belt onto the crankshaft and tighten everything up on it. Okay, now as for this timing tool, here's the part number. It was EN51025. Let me zoom in so you can see that. So you can take a pause and get a picture of that. That's the tool you're going to need. And I don't know the part number on this, but I would recommend take your last 6 of your VIN and call a dealer and get all the gaskets you need, such as the one for where the harmonic balancer comes out of the timing cover, and you're going to want the 2 intercooler seals, and this one. Whatever kind of gaskets you have to take off, you're going to want to replace, because this belt needs to be done at 150,000 or 10 years. I'd probably recommend doing it every 100,000. This truck has $159,500 on it, which is why I'm doing it. I got this truck in July of this year. And what I found is to get these plugs out, the easiest way is there's a soft rubber in the middle of these. There's no metal in the center. You can poke a screwdriver, a flathead screwdriver, through that rubber, and then you can pry it on this outside edge and pop it out. Since my belt's on and I have my tensioner set, I can pop this tool out now, which is just a, what was it, like a 12 or a 13 millimeter or something like that. It doesn't go in very far, but this is keyed to match the shape on the camshaft for the reluctor wheel for the cam sensor. So you don't want to have your battery hooked up when you're doing this. Make sure the battery is unhooked. I actually have my phone charger on it right now, separate. But yeah, you don't want to crank the motor with this tool on. You're going to wreck that, and that's not going to be an easy fix. So just a heads up on that. And another quick tip on this tool is the bolt has its own holder. It goes right there. And you can put your tool away in a safe spot. You can put this in the glove box or in with your spare tire tools or in a bag in your toolbox, or you can rent it or you could sell it. You might not have to do this job again, but I'd rather have it in case I have to do a head gasket in the future. I don't have to buy another one. These things aren't cheap, and who knows, 10 years from now these might not be available. I don't know. So before I put the new plug back in, I'm going to clean all the oil and dirt from out of here. Then I'm going to put just a small, just a coating, not anything like thick, of RTV on this plug so it stays in and doesn't want to slide out or leak. That'll help the seal go in a little easier. It'll also help keep it in once it dries. That's just a good tip when you're working with soft rubber plugs like these. Just put a small, just a coating, almost like a light layer of paint kind of a coating on there. So I'm going to do that off camera, and then now I had the plug out. I double checked all my timing marks. These are on, those are correct, those are correct, my timing marks are all correct. So now's the time to double check everything, because as soon as you start rotating this crankshaft, these timing marks are not going to line up anymore, because this belt could be off 2, 3, 4, or 5 teeth every time you come up to TDC, and then you could have to run that belt all the way around before they line up again. So just a little tip there. So I'm going to continue on. Okay, I just finished pushing this in nice and easy and cleaned off all the residue. Now one other thing that is somewhat of an occurrence, not very common, is there's a core plug here that goes into the coolant. Some of these will leak, and you'll have like a little bit of like a red crystallization buildup. That is actually dried coolant. This one was not leaking, and unfortunately it's a 17 millimeter Allen key. I do not have a 17 millimeter Allen key on me. I tried making a tool using a small bolt, but unfortunately it's in there so tight I couldn't even get it out. So these are sealed with a rubber O-ring. I don't have a new O-ring for it anyway. I was just going to take it apart, put some RTV on it, put it back in. If it came out, easy, but it's not moving, so I'm leaving it alone since it's not leaking yet. I just put some extra RTV on the outside of it just as an extra precaution. But if you're going in here, probably wouldn't be a bad idea to invest in a 17 millimeter Allen key 1/2-inch drive socket, so you can pop this out and put a new O-ring or RTV on this plug so this doesn't leak in the future. Because that aluminum corrodes or the O-ring gets flattened out and then it'll start leaking a little bit. That's something to watch out for. And you're in here, you don't want to have to redo it prematurely. And any coolant that leaks in here can actually fatigue the belt and cause it to wear faster. So that's another reason I would say 100,000 miles instead of 150, is because you never know if there's going to be any coolant or oil leaks in here that can cause this belt to degrade a lot faster. Okay, I got the belt on. This bolt is out about a 1/2 turn, so it's loose, not tight. And I need to make an adjustment on it. Now, there's not a lot of information on adjusting this. Let me get a light quick. Now, this is sitting in there like that. So you can see that point right there is this point right here. And then this slot is down right here. And we want this arrow in the middle like that. Okay? Because that's the direction of the spring. And if you also look, there's an arrow on this to tell you which direction to turn it to tighten it. Now, how this works is when you get this bolted in place, this aluminum piece has a eccentric cam on it. So it moves this pulley in relation to this bolt around in a circle. So you can see how that bolt hole is to one side of that hole. And when you rotate this aluminum collar, it'll move the center line of that bolt. And we have to make sure when we're tightening it, we're turning it counterclockwise. So you're going to need a 13 millimeter wrench and then an Allen key. I got to see what size the Allen key is. A 6 millimeter Allen key. So I'm going to tighten it up to where that arrow needs to be in that tab. I'm going to rotate the crankshaft clockwise 2 rotations and then recheck it, readjust it if need be, and then rotate it 2 rotations again and make sure I get that point to where it needs to be, because we want it to be right in that middle of that slot. Now it can be a little bit before, but we don't want it after, because the further this direction it is, the less tension it's going to have on it. The more this way we have it, the more tension the belt's going to have on it. And we obviously don't want too much, and we don't want to bottom out the travel either direction. So I'm going to do that off camera because I need 2 hands to get that done. And I'll turn you guys back on. Okay, just made my last adjustment on that tensioner, and now my points are sitting right where they need to be, right in the middle of that tab right there, like it needs to be on that pulley. So everything's looking good. I double checked all my timing marks. Everything looks good. So I think I'm good to put this thing back together. Another tip I have for you guys when you're taking this apart is the harmonic balancer that sits on the crankshaft is a tight fit, and the water pump is also a little bit of a like it gets stuck to the block, snug fit. You have a radiator right here you don't want to hit, because I'm sure this radiator is actually really expensive because it is a very large radiator with the extra coolers on it. My tip is leave one bolt loose in the harmonic balancer and the water pump. Maybe even when you go to take the fan assembly off in one piece, leave one bolt on that, just a couple threads in. So when everything pops loose, the bolt holds it in place so you don't drop it and hit your radiator. You can also put a piece of cardboard up against your radiator so you don't hit that. Because you don't want to pop anything apart with a pry bar and have it drop and then punch a hole in your radiator. So there's another tip for you guys. I'm going to see if I can't find the part numbers. I'll give you a visual look at the part numbers for everything, as well as I'll try to put them in the description so you can probably copy them or get a screenshot of them all at once. So, okay, here's your core plug gasket, your description right there. So that's the one that went right there. So I can now pitch that. Here's the, I believe these are the intercooler gaskets. Same number, 695, 695, yep. These are the intercooler gaskets. These are the new ones right here. Yeah, I'm not throwing these away yet. So I still got to put those on. So that's part number for those. I'll set them off to the side. Here is the part number. I tore the one on the bag, but there's the 245A5065. That is the timing cover gasket for the harmonic balancer. That's that guy right there. Set that one right there. Here's the AC Delco rebranded Gates belt. Part number right there. That's the timing belt. And this is the part number for the tensioner pulley. Right there. So Don't need that. So now I gotta put this mess together. Oh, another tip for you. All these bolts have these like little collars. These only have to be like snug. They don't have to be super tight. Try not to lose any of these spacers because that helps center the timing cover. All of these 10 millimeters that were on the outside had those plastic spacers on them. I was trying to be very careful when I was taking that apart. I didn't lose any. I think another thing to watch out for is there's a one-way clutch on this. Make sure that isn't loose and it's working properly. You'll kind of feel where it bites one direction and it's a little bit springy the other direction. Make sure that's not bad. If you have any alternator noises, that's usually what causes it right here. And matter of fact, another tip I don't know if everyone knows about. Looking at the serpentine belt, I can tell it's been changed because these ribs are not worn to a point. They're nice and flat. The insides of the groove are not very deep, so this belt's been changed within the last 20 or 30,000 miles. And if I'm honest, even the old timing belt right here doesn't look like it's OEM. It may have been changed, I don't know. I didn't see any damage on it, but when you buy a truck used, you don't know what the history is on this. This might have had an engine put in at some point, I don't know. But I can say it doesn't burn oil, which is a huge plus, because normally the turbos, if they go bad, dump oil either down the exhaust or intake, and I don't have any oil consumption issues on this at all. I know it's got a minimum of 80,000 miles or more because there is quite a bit of carbon buildup in the intake, but I'm not going to mess with that right now. That'll be something for another day. These things have the PCV hooked into the intake over on the air filter side, the inlet of the turbo side. So if I take my finger in here, you can see that's some of the oil from the PCV valve that feeds into this the vacuum side of the turbo on the air filter side. Right here is the hose. There's a couple things I want to do to this engine in the future. I want to put a catch can, and I will do a video on that. I want to put the catch can towards the back. I want to put a valve and a hose that goes out to the bottom, so right by the drain plug, so when I drain the oil, I can drain the catch can without having to take the catch can all apart. And when I get the catch can put in, I'll probably take the intake manifold off and clean that all out. So whatever carbon buildup is in there, I can clean that out without having to worry about like putting cleaners down the intake and just pushing all that carbon down into the engine or into the exhaust. And obviously this burning oil isn't particularly good for the DPF system either. Another thing I want to do is, as you can see, that oil is really dark on these. I want to put a bypass filter on here like I did on my Craftsman. Right there with the propane. That one's got a bypass filter on it. I want to put one of those on here, but I want to see if I can't get a cheaper one that I can change more often, because I don't want that big AMSOIL one because they're expensive. I'm going to see if I can't find a cheaper kit and see if I can't put it on the frame somewhere. I got to do some research on that. And another thing I'll have to do in the future is gonna have to upgrade this plastic charge tube, the cold side, which is known for splitting or cracking. I want to upgrade that one to something that's metal. Not sure if I can bend something to work or if I need to buy a aftermarket one, but the aftermarket ones are expensive, and it's just a regular like nipple pipe on both sides. I could probably bend a piece of exhaust tube to work for that, but once again, project for another day. Let me start putting this all back together. Okay, I just found out that the bolts that go into the valve cover are shorter bolts than the rest of them for the timing cover. And just a heads up, this one is reverse thread. I don't know why it's reverse thread, because it's not a tensioner pulley, but yeah, that's reverse thread. So watch out for that. You know, what I did as for a suggestion from another video is I took this whole fan assembly off I left these bolts in, so I had something to kind of hold on to while I was getting the first bolt in, and then you had 2 more on the side here. Don't know why this thing doesn't want to focus all of a sudden, but anyway, I wanted to show you how to hook this thing up. There's a tab right here that goes into the fan under here, and then I'm sorry, this tab, the 90-degree tab on this side goes into the body of this fan clutch assembly, and then these two tabs lock in here. So you press this spring in, oh, if it'll focus correctly, you press this spring in right here and it unlocks that. This pivots out and then comes out. So we're gonna put that in and then clip it just like that, but we're gonna put the wire in before I clip it, so just thought I'd show you how that works. Then you got a locking tab on the plug you have to unplug to get that off. You could probably unhook it down the bottom. There's another connection, but it's not as easy to get at as it is up here. Once I get that plugged in, then we can put the shroud in, which is a bit of a song and dance. Okay. Belt's over top of the pulley here, and then over the bottom of this pulley. You can see that's going to come over to the alternator. See, the other belt comes underneath this pulley to the AC, and then it goes back from the AC to the fan, reverse side, hard to see down there. And then it goes down to the crankshaft and then back up to the tensioner. And you do not have to unplug this wire to get that belt on. It goes over top of it. No problems there. Okay. I do need to cut the zip tie off, but my pliers are a little bit dull, like I have to grab a knife or something. I just added an extra zip tie on here to hold that tab in place so it doesn't fall off in the future. It's not very tight, but yeah, that's how that belt is run. So, not too complicated. It's got one little piece that goes over here to the tensioner, one little piece that goes to the alternator, one that goes down to the AC, and then one that goes down to the crank pulley. Okay, this is a longer bushing on this fan shroud piece. These are the shorter ones. Well, I don't know if this is a shroud or a sound deadening device or whatever, but this is going to have to go towards the left. And it's going to have to go down. We're going to have to kind of force this one around one of the blades, shimmy it to the right, and then it'll go down the rest of the way and on. So it's a little bit of finagling to get this in. You could put this in with the fan, but then it's a lot more trouble to work around the tensioner and everything. I didn't want to take the fan off either. You could put this in with the fan assembly on one shot, but then you got to reach around everything, and I didn't want to do that. So yeah, I'm going to start putting this in, and then if I get any tight spots, I'll kind of show you where they're at. So yeah, I kind of went in on the side, and then I kind of tilted in on the bottom, and then dropped in on the top. Not a big deal. It's just finagling around the blades a little bit. Not too bad. Nothing tight. Well, I got my, what do you call it, fan shroud in. I didn't get the bottom on yet. Make sure you put the one harness back onto the blower shroud that's down in here. That clips in, and you gotta make sure this is clipped in, and try to put the clamp back in the same spot where it was, because there's indentations in this hose from where the hose was, where the clamp was resting previously. You want to make sure it's in that same groove, because if you move it, it could change the pressure on that and cause a leak. And while I was tightening up all the clamps, make sure these are clipped on tight, not going to come loose. I noticed over here, while I was tightening up the screws for the charge pipe down here, kind of hard to see, I noticed that this guy's loose. So that's probably causing a boost leak. We'll get that tightened up, and that's why there's oil leaking out there, is because that's been leaking. You can see there's no oil there, but there's oil back here. So we'll tighten that up. And I got to put the bottom clip of the shroud on, then I gotta put the engine cover back on, and I gotta put the skid pan back on, and we can fill this thing up with coolant. I gotta hook the battery back up too. So it's coming together. We'll be able to hear this thing run any minute now. Okay, battery's tightened up, all the tools are cleaned up, charge pipes are on and tight. Coolant's still dropping. I just put about 1 1/8 gallons in, so I got to put a little bit more in there. You can kind of see it a little bit over here, but this side's still going down. There's a little bit of a divider between the two, and if it gets low, you'll hear some air bubbles pump through your heater core when you first start it up cold, in case you're wondering. So let me finish filling that up, and then we'll start it up. And it looks like it's probably going to be taking something like 2 gallons. I know it's hard to tell. This thing's got a lot of miles on it. It is pretty clean. I don't know how it got so many miles on it for 16. But yeah, there's the odometer. No weird noises. That's good. Belt's not flopping. So let that get the temperature, and we'll top off the coolant, and it should be good. In case you didn't believe me, yeah, Duramax 2.8. Look it up. Pretty neat. Matter of fact, let me show you the fuel mileage on this thing. Turn this off, and we'll turn that off. Oops, sorry. There you go. That's the fuel mileage for the last 156 miles. 26.3. And it's been cold, so I've been having a lot of warm-up time, and so that probably sucked up 1 or 2 miles per gallon. Yes, it's got DEF. Got quite a few different pieces of information. The oil pressure drops as it warms up. You can't see too good, can you? There you go. So yeah, that's the average for the last 50 miles. Well, I had to take it for a test run to get it good and hot. I didn't have to add a whole lot. If I grab this hose here, it's nice and warm, and if I squish it, you can watch the coolant level slosh up and down, so I know everything's primed with coolant and I should be good. So that's it for this video. If you liked it, make sure you give me a thumbs up. As always, thanks for watching. Have a good day, and bye.